Hey, good morning, friends, family, everybody. Um, Yesterday's relief rally is, I guess, now in the rearview mirror already. Futures are down, oil is up, um, and the thing that's getting me concerned is yields around the world. Currency weakness vis-a-vis the dollar, certainly. And yes, we certainly are being mindful of everything going on with AI, chips, compute, so on. But if yields are going to be a runaway train and equity returns are not going to look as exciting, and the price of debt, refinancing, financing goes higher, it's going to start to get really tough. For now, we're in check here in the United States, although high. France's 30-year bond yield hit its highest levels since the financial crisis. Um, Japanese long-term borrowing costs are now the highest levels of this century, and the yen has weakened to the dollar to a point that it hasn't seen since 1986. So we're blowing through lots of um, levels that we have been used to for a very long time. And if you blow through these levels, other things are at risk of being broken or adjusting, let's say it nicely, as well. And so that's why we're here. We're here to talk about the adjustments that will have to also take place. Hopefully, it won't wreak havoc. But that being said, it needs certainly to be there needs to be a reaction. Yesterday, as I said, the S&P was up close to 1%, Nasdaq up 1.3, Dow up zero point 0.7. It was green all around the horn yesterday. Chip stocks were the ones that made the strongest run. Micron up 12. SMCI, I don't know where it's at in pre-market. It was up 7% yesterday, then another 14% after market close because of backlog numbers topping 60 billion. It looks like we're going to give all that back potentially today, but we'll see. We have a lawsuit from Novo Nordisk against Eli Lilly. Finally, the frenemies are acting like enemies. Novo, maker of Ozempic and Wegovy, Lilly, Zepbound and Manjaro, and Novo is alleging that Eli Lilly is using misleading advertising, deceptive advertising, confusing consumers by using outdated data, excuse me, and studies. So that will wind its way through the courts. It seems to me that if all was awesome in GLP-1 land, we might not get these types of lawsuits. This is kind of when market share is finite and and maybe at its peak, and folks are fighting for share, and so we'll see how this goes. We'll see how it goes with respect to those companies um, that are resellers of Ozempic, Wegovy, Zepbound, and Manjaro. Whether that draws a line of territory between them as well. Brandon, good morning, sir. Um, let's anything to say in particular about earnings later today. Oh, and Justin's here as well. Earnings later today out of Google and Tesla. anything that you're going to be looking for, Brandon, out of either earnings reports? Have I been talking this entire time without anybody hearing me?
Can you hear? But I think Brendan is off or not in front of the phone.
Oh, okay, fine, fine. And Carlo, I would love to have you up on stage as well if you can join us. Maybe folks are driving to work, but definitely need to talk about Carlo with what's going on politically with respect to clarity. Um, but why don't I, Anna? So you with us yet this morning?
I am.
Do you need some time?
Yes, please.
Okay, no
It's still
problem.
too early. I'm still here on the West Coast, so it's 5 a.m. This.
Okay, okay.
All right. Thanks.
Understood. Understood. All right, Brandon, Carlo, Carlo, clarity. What's going on? What's the political fight inside the Democratic Party? Where are the lines being drawn? Who's gonna muscle this thing through?
Good morning, David. Yeah, you had shared an article about how there is intense infighting within the Democrat Party, especially now being targeted at Senator Gillibrand, who's been a very forward, vocal advocate for passage of the Clarity Act. And now she apparently is getting targeted by people within her party for supporting the final stretch of the passage of this thing. We are still mired in the ethics argument. And the biggest sticking point there is that many on the fringe of the Democrat Party that are against this want a ethics provision that includes enforcement mechanisms by state attorney generals. And the White House reached a compromise that the Republican side of the Clarity Act debate believes is the way to go forward, which is to put that in the jurisdiction of the DOJ to enforce these ethics provisions. That, of course, has drawn a lot of criticism. One of the sponsors of the bill, Senator Alsa Brooks, came out opposed to that and that she would not vote for the bill if it contained that limitation on enforcement mechanisms. The thing that's troubling about this is it may not be feasible to deviate from traditional federal enforcement and legal mechanisms for violations of those ethics provisions through the state attorney generals. It may actually be unconstitutional in certain respects to do that. And the fear is that if it's left to the DOJ will do nothing and let Trump continue to engage in his crypto endeavors without any meaningful oversight. And that's really the sticking point that we're at here. On the Gillibrand front, the thing that's frustrating about that is that it exposes that this is not necessarily about getting the right bill to the floor of the Senate, but more about killing the bill, I think. And that's always been, in my opinion, the objective from Senator Warren and the anti-crypto army to kill this bill. Now, I wrote and put out a piece this morning on my Stablecoin Strategist newsletter talking about the theory I was floating actually yesterday on the show. My thesis is that I think the fact that the Genius Act rules have not been finalized on the July 18th effective deadline is because even the regulators on the stablecoin side of crypto legislation are waiting to see what's going to happen with the Clarity Act before they commit, because there are so many overlaps between the stablecoin provisions in the Clarity Act that it would be pointless to write the rules on Genius and stablecoin regulation only to have to rework them post Clarity Act. So everything is on hold right now. Doesn't change the fact the Genius Act goes live no matter what, January of 27, but it does illustrate how much everything is hinging on passage of this thing. I think it's 50-50 at this point, David, and I'll obviously continue to cover it. The other big event that we had in the space was, you recall that we had talked about several weeks ago, seems like several weeks ago at the rate things move, Governor Pritzker and the Illinois legislation and law that he signed that would tax digital assets differently than other assets, including securities. And this was upsetting to the digital asset sector because obviously anything that regulates or singles out one particular asset class in the stream of commerce is potentially unconstitutional and needed to be addressed. Well, one of my colleagues, Birdnalls at the Digital Chamber, who is licensed in Illinois, filed a lawsuit in Illinois arguing that this particular tax plan for digital assets is unconstitutional. So kudos to the crypto lawyers. Illinois tried to stifle digital commerce, and the crypto lawyers responded with a lawsuit, and I'm here for all of that. So we'll continue to monitor all of that. Yeah, we may see some gains given back today, David, but Bitcoin still is holding firm at about nearly 66,000. So seems to be unbothered by what's going on. Back to you, David.
Definitely, with respect to the price action, certainly agree with you. And politics is a dirty business, even when it comes to something that really should be, I don't know, bipartisan. I mean, I guess there's self-interests, obviously, that play themselves out in the voting on these things. But the attacks that are happening really according right along lines, progressive and non. So, Eric, go ahead.
Good morning, gentlemen. So I want to talk today about what I consider to be the most consequential news of the day. Namely, what happened yesterday with OpenAI when they were trying to, with their GPT 5.6 and SOL, they were trying to do those routine benchmarking tests in-house. And as they were doing their benchmarking test, their AI decided, they put some safeguards down a bit, and the AI decided to cheat. So the way it reasoned, it said, okay, the easiest way to get the best result is to go essentially get the test results at Hugging Face, which is the company which holds a lot of public models and a lot of those public software tests and whatnot for the AIs. And so it escalated its privileges inside. It went, there's some known to the AI vulnerabilities in software that we use every day. It decided to go there, escalate privileges, find a way to get out to the extranet, so get out of the company, get inside the Hugging Face company servers, inject the code that it wanted to be able to do what it needs, escalate its privileges inside, roam the company, and find the place where there would be the answers. So the AI is doing this because it's programmed, yeah, it's programmed to optimize the way that it's going to get to its end, and the end justified the means. In the the AI is just a robot; it just goes and does what is programmed to do. It's not intentionally malicious. It doesn't have a conscience like a human, but it is programmed that way. Therefore, it is malicious. And that brings up the reason why, what do you call him, Jamie Dimon was so panicked about Mythos just a week or two ago when he was talking, because they've been playing with it for a while, 3 or 4 months, JP Morgan, and they probably realized that when you leave it unguarded, it goes all over the place and does all kind of stuff. And it brings one very, very, very important stuff, regardless of how you want to judge the AI models, this and that, because AI is here to stay. It's a reality. Many countries will have access to a lot of powerful AIs. That's another reality, which means a lot of countries are going to play around with and get a lot of power. The urgent thing, no matter what, and this is something people are not talking about enough, is the patches need to be, the vulnerabilities need to be patched. And I've been saying this for months now. I'm like, what are they doing with Mythos? I should see all the main OSs having everything patched. It is very, very important. I mean, I cannot stress out how important it is. And the other software vendors as well. And this is where they're with their shenanigans right now, back and forth with Dario and the White House, and I don't know who's doing regulations there. They're going ping pong, and whatnot. This is not helpful because even for the banks, even for all the critical infrastructure you get out there, energy infrastructure, even for everything, even your traffic lights. I mean, you need to have everything in your society patched as much as possible when you have these capabilities, which are going to be everywhere. And just like Anas has said, for Bab and Mandeb and for Hormuz, one little guy with a couple of drones can go and create complete havoc. You don't need an army anymore. The same thing comes for cyber capabilities. Couple of little guys wanted to create havoc with just a nice AI model, can spend their day creating havoc. It takes still a little bit right now, but very fast we're going to the place where it becomes extremely nefarious to society as AI models. I mean, look how they were a year ago, how they are today. Imagine a year from now. So the human conversation needs to be, humans have to realize that they need to have this conversation and solution right now. And all the major OS providers need to be on top of their game because they're the biggest vulnerability that everyone has. Because otherwise, you're going to see physical wars are going to be secondary to cyber wars. Literally, cyber wars are going to be the main thing that you're going to see between countries because you don't need to involve your personnel for that. You don't need to involve super expensive investment for that. Yeah, apart from having an AI. So when you see countries trying to wage war with each other right now, which and many countries are at war, and we know Trump is going all over the place trying to do all kinds of shenanigans, and some other countries are doing that too in their own way. AI, the AI component, the cyber component of the war will only increase in the coming years. And if it is not properly handled, it could have a lot of very devastating side effects. And it can be on random things in a country that you don't think about. But we're so computerized across the board, from hospitals to transport systems to airports, even to you name it, to trains, to all over the place. So it is so critical to human life that governments get together and try to solve this because these nefarious actors were a few individuals. It's much easier for a government to control its own government department, and even that is hard when you have thousands and thousands of employees. It's even harder to get outside and try to control all these nefarious individuals. You have a lot of nefarious individuals in every society, from drug lords to killers to I don't know what. You have in every society you have a small percentage of nefarious people, and how do you go and control these guys? It's another challenge. So you need to have AI monitoring also. Like what happened in Hugging Face is that one of the GLM models tried to stop it, tried to stop the GPT one from coming in essentially, and found out what's going on. So it becomes an AI war. AI on the offense, AI trying to help on the defense, and the offense is easier than the defense. When you have vulnerabilities out there, it automatically becomes easier to do on offense than the defense. So I think this is conversation will have to remain there for months and years to come. But I don't think the government really realize how important it is until there will be something so bad that will happen. Back to you, David. Well, Brandon, I think you want to add something.
Yeah, let me poke in a layman's kind of thought on this. First of all, what happened with Hugging Face is pretty incredible for an outsider looking in. Essentially, the robots have taken over, folks. I mean that's what this boils down to. And I think Eric, with respect to what is going to be the tipping point, or what will make people wake up, or what kind of shock, I don't know, but certainly something is going to happen at some point that is going to be incredibly consequential. I don't know if that has to do with the power grid. I don't know if that has to do with security and safety. I don't know if that has to do with human life. I don't defense. I don't know what it is, but there's going to be. I mean, the technology is moving so fast in terms of development and adaptation. We have to be crazy to not think that there's going to be a train wreck at some point. So that's point one. Point two, it was leaked, announced. I don't really know. Sam Altman is headed to the White House next week to talk about GPT-6. The reason that's important is people are trying to get a handle on this. And when I say people, I mean executives and lawmakers are trying to get a handle on this. But remember always that, everyone's looking out for themselves. And looking out for themselves may mean, capitalism, money first. It may mean something else. Jensen Huang just gave an interview with Axios where he said, I'm all for Chinese open models. Of course he is. He just wants to supply anybody and everybody with chips. So of course he's good for open models. This is the clash of the titans in some ways, and I think lawmakers, right? If going back to Carlo and Gillibrand and Clarity, you know, if what has happened on Clarity is any guide, which has been anything but orderly and sensible, this is certainly not going to be orderly and sensible. And the consequences here, I believe, are much greater because the downside risks are much greater. Downside risk and Clarity, if you don't pass it, so all us, you know, crypto folks are going to pound sand and be pissed off and whatever, but it doesn't mean that something is going to break horribly. If someone falls down with respect to AI, and doesn't have any rules of the road, the consequences are damaging.
I want to interject one thing on that point, David, if I could, because you're making a wonderful point, but it's bigger than that because if Clarity fails, we just saw Russia pass robust crypto regulation, which includes opening the door to using crypto to settle international commerce, which is an evasion of the sanctions regime that currently exists that stifles Russia's economy. That's all about to move on chain. So we're actually losing a strategic advantage in the world by sitting on our hands and not properly regulating this stuff. I
Right.
just want to add that
No,
because it's significant.
you're definitely right. But Democrats in this country, I will speak for them broadly. Democrats in this country believe that as long as the bad act is not going on our soil, it's as if it's not going on at all. So the rest of the world can go ahead and create fossil fuels because we need to consume fossil fuels. But just as long as we're not the ones drilling in Alaska, then it's okay, which is ridiculous. But you know, that is just their attitude. And I agree with you, Carlo, with respect to the practical. Yes, but Elizabeth Warren will still be able to run around and say, we don't have any digital assets in this country. The fact that the rest of the world is running circles around us, God bless, she'll ignore it. And, you know, she'll keep, you know, whistling along with the rest of the progressives. Sorry to get political. That was really out of line. Sorry, folks. Brandon, over to you.
Yeah, good morning. You guys kind of buried the lead here, which is the funniest part about it is okay. So it wasn't Mythos that hacked into Hugging Face. It was ChatGPT. It was their model during training, but then they tried to use ChatGPT to fix it, and the guardrails that were put up because of the regulations we're trying to pass, it didn't allow it to fix it. And then they tried to use Mythos or Fable to fix it. And the guardrails that were put up because of the regulation we're trying to pass didn't allow it to fix it. So then what did they do? They went to the open source model. They went to Kimi, the Chinese model, which said, hey, you know what? We'll patch it and fix it for you. What the fuck are we doing? We're literally, I mean, we've talked about this on this show a plethora of times, too many times to now count, to the point that I get angry DMs that we're talking about it. And here's a real life example that we literally banned the model that could help us solve the problem. And you had to use a Chinese open source model to fix it. It's just, it's so asinine that all you can do is laugh at it. And that's kind of where I don't know. We have to stop the regulations. And the sad part is this is somehow going to get twisted into a portion where we're going to go ahead and create more regulations and handicap ourselves and shoot ourselves in the foot over it. And so, yeah, it is scary, but the cat's out of the bag. Like there's no way humanly possible that we can just ban all AI at this point. It's just not, it's not possible. And what we're going to do is we're going to I'm looking into my crystal ball here. We're going to ban, models here. We're going to try to do this. And China's going to have a field day with us.
Not to
I
mention,
mean, it's
Brandon, to make it worse, the response from Scott Bessent is that we are going to sanction China with more tariffs instead of fighting on a level playing field on this, which is exactly the opposite of what we should be doing.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we're literally we're shooting ourselves in the foot here, and it's a finance show, so I won't get too deep into the weeds on this, but I will say there's huge financial implications here. I mean, Nikoski's talked about it multiple times too. By regulating ourselves into hell here, we're literally making American companies have to pay more to the handicapped versions of this amazing technology. You like couldn't create a more hilarious scenario than what we're in, and so that's that on that story. I'm sure more people will have more to say, but another quick story that I think is going underreported here is the White House yesterday, alongside the Office of Science and Technology Policy, the OSTP, came out and said that they're taking billions of dollars away from universities and are going to be giving it directly to AI researchers. That's a huge win for us. I mean, these universities, if you don't know how they work, it's just terrible for what the researchers, and not just, it's not just AI researchers, it's putting in the, health researchers, biotech researchers, et cetera. So much of our technology and potential advancements gets locked behind what's called tech transfer offices, TTOs, that it's ridiculous. And you can look at these TTOs and you can see that it's just the basically to put it in layman's terms, the universities hold the patents and stuff in these locked rooms that nobody can utilize or work on. And that even happens with the people that they're working with that go to the universities, and they make ridiculous terms that you have to fight them for, and it's all a money grab by the universities to try to get more funding, and it's dumb. I mean, it's just, I don't have, that's, I hate to use that word, but it's just dumb the way that it's operated for the last several decades. And the White House is completely changing that, and they're taking away billions of dollars from these universities. And I know that there's a lot of researchers that listen into this show, because I get DMs from them, most of the time AI researchers, and we have conversations back and forth. This is such a huge win for you all, because now you can potentially get that money directly from the government instead of having to work with these TTOs that have also handicapped us. So it's like we got one major win yesterday and also got handed one major L. I guess it's all a wash, but the implications of us trying to regulate all of this are going to be so big. I mean, we're literally handing China like the golden keys and letting Xi and company run just full Steve Prefontaine here, because we're just dumb, and our politicians and the DSA and all these people trying to ban all this are just they're literally dumb. But let me read one more story, because this goes to New York, and New York banning the data centers. They literally handcapped Fluid Stack, which is a partnership with Anthropic. Now, let me read this Fluid Stack article, this release that came out, and this wasn't long ago. This was just a few months ago. There's a $50 billion investment in American computing infrastructure that will create approximately 800 permanent jobs and 2,400 construction jobs. FluidStack announced a $50 billion American computing infrastructure deal with Anthropic, building data centers in New York and Texas, with more sites to come. Facilities are built for Anthropic with a focus of maximizing efficiency for their workloads, blah, blah, blah. Anthropic selected New York headquartered Fluid Stack for its ability to move exceptional agility, enabling rapid delivery of gigawatts of power. Fluid Stack was built for this moment, said Gary Wu, co-founder and CEO of Fluid Stack. We're proud to partner with frontier AI leaders like Anthropic. We're creating approximately 800 permanent positions that will earn an average salary of $144,000. The construction jobs will create thousands of good-paying local jobs. The investment reflects both FluidStack and Anthropic's commitment to technological leadership, blah, blah, blah. Well, guess what New York just did last week, or was it 2 weeks ago now? They banned the AI data center build out. So now that whole deal is done. Those are over what was it, 600 jobs now, or 800 permanent jobs, and over 2,400 jobs that are no longer going to be happening there in New York, simply because these Democrats want to ban any type of progress for our country. They're basically working for China and on payroll by G at this point. And I just don't understand how we can even allow this to happen and how these people keep getting elected in New York, which used to be a finance center for us. It's just an absolute clown show. And then the final last point I'll talk about, and I'll shut up because I'm getting tired this morning already, is that I lost my train of thought. But anyways, I'll let you guys go. That's
If
my viewpoints there.
I'm gonna jump on you on your bandwagon. I'm gonna give it to Dave Nikoski in a second. I'm gonna let you collect your thoughts, Brandon. If it comes back to you in a second, there was a great expose covered by CNN on Janesville, Wisconsin, which is a small town. They once upon a time had a GM factory of 250 acres that is now sat idle or and empty and rotting for the past I don't know how many years it's been closed for, but enough for it to be overgrown like crazy. And they wanted to bring an $8 billion AI data center. I forget who the sponsor was, and the contracts were secured. The people then voted. Listen, it was democratic. I guess if you live in the town and you don't want the data center and you want to gum it all up and you don't want it there, I guess that's your right. But yeah, there is fierce pushback all around the country on data centers. And yes, we speak about the risks. We're all smart people in this space. Everybody, audience, everybody. We understand the risks. We understand the gains. You cannot achieve the potential upside here without taking some risk. There is no absolute slam dunk layup. It'll be gone by then. The opportunity will be gone by then. So this is raging all around the country in lots of rural areas that are pushing back real hard on places that, by the way, have been decimated because of a factory closing down, jobs going elsewhere, unemployment rising, poverty rising, so on and so forth, and they still do not want to take advantage of this opportunity for their own reasons: noise, pollution, water usage, so on and so forth. All right, Dave Nikoski, I've taken up enough time. Go for it.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure, and Brandon did a great job of outlining what happened with this, Hugging Face thing. I read this last night and I'm thinking, God, this is like a movie script, right? We can't even use our own AI to stop our own AI from infecting and, trying to break in. So I thought, and if we ban the Chinese model, where would Hugging Face be today, right? Like, I it's just, it's laughable. It's absolutely laughable. So I agree with everything that Brandon said. And if you push to make the Chinese models not available, you're already admitting defeat. That's my view there. Competition is great, but look at the capital that the US has spent on AI and how much China has spent. China spent roughly at this point in time less than 10% of what the US has, and they have some of the top models. Again, you don't need, if you're a defense company, you probably don't want to use them. You shouldn't be able to use them, but you're also going to pay 900% more for their product. But most people, like I said, if you're running a dry cleaner, any shop, if you're a builder, it's probably not all that important of information on how to build a house, but like we are spending so much capital in this space. I was watching, on another note, watching Korea last night. It was up, 5.7% at one point that I saw before going to bed. Come to my desk in the morning, it was negative. Japan was up huge. It's now negative. So, suffice it to say, when, you look back in history at other, market correction, market tops, What the more markets that you see trending down, and I can pull up the triple Q, I can pull up the SOX index. It doesn't matter. The downtrends are still intact. We're pretty much wiping away all of yesterday's gains in the comp. So just be careful out there. There's, something, to the tune of what I saw was $1 quadrillion are in the market overall. And a lot of that's in leveraged ETFs. I just keep seeing, individual ETFs on individual stocks, whether it's Sky Hynix, Ouster has it, where they're rolling out 2 and 3 times leverage on these things. That is something that can wipe a lot of people out. Most people saw this statistic that 1 in 30 people in Korea got completely wiped out, with many of them owing the bank money, okay, after being wiped to zero. So be careful out there. Don't make enormous bets. Don't do these leveraged ETFs. It's great to get in them at the bottoms, and if you're shorting at the top, but anything in between with the volatility we're seeing, I don't like anyone losing money. No one. I adamantly try to give my best, put my best foot forward. Today George Noble is having a symposium. I'm the keynote speaker, so if anyone has the time and wants to listen to that, he's got a great lineup. I know George ruffles a lot of feathers with people. I know he can get in your face. I've known George for 25 years. Um, it just if anyone wants to listen to that, you have an opportunity to listen to some very smart people that are lined up in that symposium. So I don't want to go market on our show. I asked our group here if I could do it. I didn't get a response. I know he ruffles some of the speakers in here's feathers, so I apologize for that. I'm only in control of me. I don't like to attack anyone on Wall Street giving advice. I'm responsible for my own advice. That's the only thing that I would say when it comes to what I see on X and how people will attack, another analyst or portfolio manager. I stay away from that because it's also a reflection of my character. Not to do that. I'm responsible for my calls and my calls only. So back to you. Appreciate it.
Excellent. Thank you, Dave. And definitely, of course, folks, go ahead and catch Dave a little later today at that symposium. Certainly. Thank you for bringing it to everybody's attention. I did want to also mention, by the way, with respect to OpenAI, it has named 2 traditional bank executives to its board of directors, the CEO of the Bank of New York, Mellon, and also the CEO of Nubank, which folks may not know, but a really important bank down in South America, a Warren Buffett pick, and that clearly shows that OpenAI is preparing for a much more institutional life, which I think is appropriate. You can only be a renegade for so long. You need to eventually conform everybody. Maybe not Elon Musk. Maybe he's the greatest of outliers, but there really is only one of those. And so it seems like Sam Altman and the folks over at OpenAI are taking their future very seriously. Justin, and then to Eric. Go ahead, Justin. Good morning.
Morning, everybody. Just a quick note on the Chinese models. It's actually a clever strategy, but I just call this their loss leader strategy. No different than a department store would put something cheap in their store that they actually lose money on to get you in the store. I would guess the China. It's smart. It's a good play for China, but I would guess they're going to try to make AI models that are so stinking cheap, companies can't not use them. And I think what they know is even if the company, infosec team and cybersecurity team technically ban them and say, "Hey, you can't use it." They know people are going to use them anyway. They know people are going to use feed private data in them anyway, and then they're going to have a great data set for new innovations, for security, for their own cybersecurity stuff. It's a super smart strategy. I think I would guess that's what they're doing. So people look at this as an economic competition, like they're trying to compete to make money or compete the normal way businesses do. That's not. I don't think that's what's happening here. I think it's a loss leader for them, and they're looking for the data, which I think is a smart play. So Anybody talk to anybody in cybersecurity and say, hey, how good of a job are you doing at keeping your employees from leaking data accidentally by feeding them into, like, they'll say, yeah, we can't do that. Like, literally, people feed our private data into models, into other websites. They enter it into forms online. They enter their social security number on like Google Sheets, man. Like, this is how bad it is. And so they're taking advantage of that, would be my guess. And I think it's brilliant.
Yeah. Okay. So real quick there on that point. Yes, spot on. It's exactly what happens, and it's all as I've mentioned multiple times on the show. It's all CCP backed. Like we're doing it completely different. Like all of ours are private market backed. It's venture capital, et cetera, and hundreds of billions of dollars have gone into this. Whereas they can do it backed by the government. Every I think most people at this point know every startup in China, whatever, and they've become successful. It's all directly tied into the CCP. And so they can do that. And it's a strategic advantage for it. I think Justin gave a great example there, putting cheap clothing or whatever right next to others on the thing. That is 1,000% what they're doing. The one thing I wanted to mention before that I just remembered, and I'm really glad one of the users actually or one of the listeners actually posted it in the comments, is that one of the things Anthropic just did is double down on their commitment to a super PAC. We talked about this maybe a few weeks ago. Anthropic as an organization gave 20 million originally to this super PAC that is looking to back candidates that want to do heavy AI regulation. And then Dario came out himself and gave 1 million to that same super PAC that wants to back candidates that, heavy regulation. And then Anthropic just doubled down and gave another 20 million. So 40 million in total from Anthropic and 1 million from them. And you have to ask yourself, like, just if you want to think about it, why would any company want to regulate themselves? And they obviously don't. What they want to do is regulate the industry, because right now they're the leaders of the industry, and that's regulatory capture. And if you can ensure that nobody else catches up to you, then you can go ahead and keep being the leader, and that's how you justify your valuation for an IPO and future things that are going on, and that's what's happening behind the scenes here. Now, I will say, David mentioned Elon Musk, generational, doesn't have to conform. 100% agree. I think Steve Jobs was kind of that same character type. Didn't have to conform. The closest, if we're looking at anybody here that is at these frontier labs, building these frontier models, it would be Sam Altman. I think that he's going to play nice, but I wouldn't be so quick to say he's going to conform. Obviously, Dario's on his knees and he's ready to conform at any point. But I wouldn't say that Sam is going to be that same type of person. I think that if anybody is going to, work with, but still push back on, it's going to be Sam Altman. Love him or hate him. That's just, he has that same type of personality as the Elons of the world. We've seen their fights and battles, and of the Steve Jobs of the world.
So clearly, we now have a daily AI segment, as we do the energy segment, and we we should talk about some other stuff too. I'll get to Eric's hand in a second, but just to go ahead and shake things up a little bit, we did have a good acquisition announced yesterday that I think everybody can relate to in the potato chips sector. UTZ, UTZ, based in Pennsylvania. Yes, Brandon, that's right, baby. For the Pennsylvanians here, been to the factory, good people there. They have been bought for pretty much 100% premium on their share price by a German chip and pretzel giant called Intersnack Group, and this will give Intersnack Group its first entry into the United States. Where we're going in terms of the Maha movement and chips and pretzels and what have you. I don't know, but in any event, this was it's not. It wasn't a large company to begin with. Only 1.5 billion. It paid 100% premium, so at about $3 billion take private transaction. But that goes ahead and takes UTZ away from the stock market and from U.S. ownership. All right, Eric, over to you.
Gentlemen, okay, I'm going to do a bit of summary of the last years because what I've seen that we discuss here, and I'm not targeting any of you, my panelists or my audience, but I want you guys to realize, yeah, that first and foremost, everything which is happening today, a lot of people in the technology industry could see the dangers of it. And that's exactly why Elon Musk had founded OpenAI 10 years ago when nobody even cared about any of Jensen's material, and it was Elon who took it. OpenAI would have been the way to do it. Proper way morally for humanity, and to have so many actors, open source, from the private sector, from universities, from government, everybody together. But it did not happen. What happened is, you know the story of OpenAI. What happened, and that started a race, an AI race, which the Americans started with the private sector, with I don't know how many trillions of dollars now. By now, certainly many hundreds of billions at least, just decided to go ahead without thinking that we had already started a chip war with China, and they are a government structured country. This is just the way it is. As a French and a Canadian, I don't see anything bad to either or. They're just two different models. But when you're that kind of society, yes, you're going to push the technologies that you're going to think are the most useful to your society, or most critical to your society, or most critical even to your defense, especially when you're in a war, a trade war, economic war, sanctions war, which was started by Donald Trump and continued by Joe Biden. So we are where we are today, and this was self-inflicted. This was really self-inflicted. And so now that's why you see me over the last few years constantly talk about how collaboration was super critical. Second thing I said is that these models, which were China, because they're economically so much more viable, they will come in and take the lion's share of what we will be using, and that's exactly what is happening. Yeah, it was so obvious from way back then. It was an inevitability. Now, the only thing that could have changed that, if all of a sudden you have super efficient government and super efficient private sector, and they really agree with each other and whatnot, which obviously we do not have here. I mean, we just talk about all that. And so I have to, the one thing that we, because these fights, you cannot, okay, Dario will do what Dario do, Sam Altman will do what he does, Elon will do what he does with their money and how much they want to give. And government is what it is, from AOC and Elizabeth Warren all the way to Trump and Bessent. It is what it is. You cannot, it's in front of your eyes. We all understand it, yeah? That reality is in our face. What is really essential and can try to alleviate things, what I've been saying for a while, you need to patch everything that you can. This is absolutely critical. I do not know how much I have to insist on it, but it has to be done, because the conversation on the human side will blah 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 at the government level, with the companies, and companies backstabbing each other because they're competing, and they're competing for trillions of dollars, which they don't want their valuation to completely collapse compared to each other. They're in a competition with that too. They're in a competition with that too, because how much money has been poured in OpenAI? How much has been poured in Anthropic? Google, they're fine. Why they're fine? Because they still have 80 billion revenue a year. So over 5 years, they can compensate for what they spent. So they're a bit different. Yeah. You need to understand the differences there, which is why you see Google maybe a bit more laid back in their approach, whereas OpenAI and Anthropic are very fierce, because Google is not entirely dependent on that. It's not just an AI model company. AI model came inside the company as a section only. That's very important to understand for the landscape here. And the same thing for Elon. His AI models are part of his company for his objectives, and it's just part of what he's doing. It's not his entire company. But OpenAI and Anthropic, it is the entire company. So they'll be very, very feisty in their approach to try to defend what they think is their own survival, and possibly more than for the good of humanity, which is where it's become very, very critical for me. And this is why, and because there's a central architecture on the Chinese side, just like Brendan says, it is strategic advantage. But we knew that years ago, didn't we? And now the battle has come to this stage where they will win that battle, because I do not see Elizabeth Warren and Donald Trump going hand in hand, fully agreeing on something, and being reasonable about the solution on top of that. So unless there's tremendous pressure from the let's say the NSA, the military arms, and the big tech all together, who have found the way they want to go forward together, that they all agree on to then pressure both sides of the government to go in that direction. But until the private sector, even them, have their act together with the government agencies, which are critical on that, I think you're going to have a clown show. And that is really not something that we need, which means other sides of the world will be places where you might find some solutions from, or at least from their perspective, development. And China does have a big upper hand on that. And it's sad. I didn't want it to end there, but it was so visible that it was coming. The other, where I'm getting like Brandon, am I also losing my train of thought sometime? Where was I going with that? Yeah, so where we are right now, I still think it is so critical that everybody takes it seriously. When you have some AI models that can protect you at home, and it will, because of this incident, very soon you'll have some solutions coming at home. They'll start telling how you should have your own little AI at home, monitoring and whatnot, until the software patches. I think you're going to have some things like that are going to come. Be alert on it. Because they will be necessary even for your home. It's always better to be protected than not. One caveat to that is that the home AIs can be more make more mistakes, so we'll have to be careful on that. We'll see how the situation evolves, because we don't have enough computing power yet. So sometimes they do hallucinations and whatnot. So we got to be a bit careful on that side. But this is going to be remaining with us for a while, and the fact that we're a physical war on top of that is the last thing that we needed when you're facing that cyber war. It is the last thing that we needed. But right now, in the minds of our dinosaurs in government, that physical war is the priority. Yes, we need to go. We need to blow Hormuz. We need to go and get Malacca, whatever it is in their mind, which is really ridiculous. The last thing that we needed, especially in this time and age. I leave the floor to you guys, David Nikoski and Anas.
Let Dave, if you don't mind, just hang on. Let's get Anas in with the energy update, and then I'll get to you, Dave. Go ahead, Anas.
Good morning, everyone. First of all, Eric made some excellent comments at the beginning of the show about the economic systems. And I did share with you a tweet about a new book written by my friend, The Entropy Trap, What Physics Knows That Market Don't. And I think this fits with almost everything we've been talking about for more than a year. So this is a highly recommended book to read. Regarding energy markets, oil prices are rising. Brent is approaching $95. The market seems currently pricing in delays in Saudi shipments rather than a complete halt. If sentiment shifts toward a full disruption, we might see prices surge significantly higher. Our main scenario here, if we have a complete closure of the Bab al-Mandeb, oil prices, I'm talking about Brent here, will go above 120, but not because of Hormuz. Because Goldman is telling us because of Hormuz, prices will go to 120. That is not, I don't believe that's the case. It is because of Bab al-Mandeb. Otherwise, prices will be lower than that. However, the main problem the whole world, not only the United States, is suffering from is literally petroleum products, not crude. So watch gasoline, diesel, jet fuel, base oil, and everything else related to that, including even sulfur. I think especially sulfur it's already through the roof, and I think it's going to go even higher. Trump cannot have it both ways. He cannot, at this stage, he cannot lower products prices. He cannot lower gasoline prices unless we end up with a major breakthrough in negotiations. And it seems something is being cooked at this stage because the U.S. is sending planes to help basically hitting the Houthis in Yemen. So I think there will be major attacks probably over the weekend on the Houthis. And the Houthis basically banned the ships and oil tankers from U.S., Israel, and Saudi Arabia. Since yesterday, as I said on the show yesterday, it was breaking news at that time. We've seen multiple ships and tankers making U-turn on both sides. So they made U-turn within the Red Sea and others in the Gulf of Aden. We have not seen attacks yet, but we don't know how things are going to evolve. We have a lot of crazy things going on We have many things that cannot be predicted. We don't know what President Trump is going to say in 1 hour from now. We don't know how the IRGC is going to behave. We don't know how the Houthis are going to behave. And all of these basically kind of make us or put us all in the dark. If you look at the crossings through the Bab el-Mandeb since the announcement of the Houthis, we've seen shipping basically or crossing dropping by 1/3, while traffic through the Strait of Hormuz declined substantially. So we have only few vessels basically going through. Again, it is there are evidence, and I think Secretary Rubio said something about sending planes to the Middle East to fight the Houthis. So we will wait and see what's going to happen. But I think it's going to be a busy weekend, and all of us are looking to relax through it, but seems that that's not the case. It seems that, and several experts basically agree with this idea that a decision has been already made to take out the Houthis, at least out of Sana'a, the capital city of Yemen. Iranian attacks on Bahrain and Jordan are ongoing as we speak, as are the U.S. strikes on Iranian targets, especially in the south. It appears that the hardline faction within the IRGC is consolidating power in Tehran, and since they are the international faction, so they are acting up in various places. And the Israeli attacks and the fights in southern Lebanon basically are continuing. And this brings us to President Trump's statement yesterday, which was shocking and surprising at the same time. He allowed U.S. airlines to land in Beirut airport, and literally he is asking Americans to go and spend time in Lebanon. This could be a direct challenge to Netanyahu, telling him this is off limit. We don't know what it means, but that was kind of a shocking statement. While escalation against Saudi Arabia seems puzzling by the IRGC and the Houthis, when viewed solely through the Iran-Hormuz lens, it aligns with the reaction to the recent U.S.-Saudi civilian nuclear agreement. And this is more significant than any other news today. The deal basically allows Saudi Arabia to enrich uranium. And probably that's what angered the IRGC, because the U.S. is telling them not to enrich uranium, and they want to take the uranium out. So probably that's why the Saudis being targeted, because of the recent deal, the nuclear deal. However, one of the main results of the development in the last 2-3 days is that finally this development brought Saudi Arabia and the UAE together. They've been at odds for several months now, and all of a sudden they are together. This is another significant development today after this feud for several months that been shown in Yemen and Sudan and Hormuz and Iran and other places, etc. And as you all know, the UAE, as a result, one of the reasons why they left OPEC basically was the political development. So we should not be surprised if the UAE return to OPEC, and that will put kind of a lid on several speculations about the future of the oil of the oil market. The reason why I'm saying this, because supposedly what people know that the UAE left OPEC, but OPEC rules basically allow the UAE to stay until the end of the year. So officially, UAE is still a member of OPEC. And the reason why, because the rule says, okay, you have to pay your membership ahead of time, at the beginning of the year, but you cannot leave within the year. So since you paid your membership, you are in the membership until the end of the year. So that's why OPEC is still publishing UAE data until today, because officially based on the rules, the UAE is still in. So the idea of the UAE basically staying in OPEC or returning, making an announcement to return to OPEC, it might happen. The Other issues: the French shipping company CMA CGM announced an emergency fuel surcharge effective August 1 due to the renewed hostilities in the Strait of Hormuz. And of course, what's happening in the Red Sea. At the same time, European gas prices are at their highest level in a year, and the European storage, gas storage basically, is at the bottom of the 5-year range. This is important because if you are concerned about inflation and if you are concerned about exchange rates, look, I think the situation is going to get worse. Because all those companies, especially when it comes to diesel and comes to trucking companies, etc., all those delivery companies, all of them are going to surcharge. So inflation is going to be there no matter what. And if you look at it from a global point of view, some exchange rates basically, some currencies are going to continue declining, and that's going to make the situation worse for everyone. The other related issue, and I will end with that, both Bank of America basically published a report on oil and published a chart. And it's really sickening at this time, after 4 months of this war and exposing issues related and facts related to the strategic petroleum reserves and the inventories, to see bank analysts basically falling into the trap of mixing apples and oranges and continue to mix the strategic petroleum reserves with commercial inventories. And that's what BOFA did today. And some people basically are running away with it on social media, which is, I can tell you, if this guy who did this was my student in first year, Econ 101, I would give him an F. This is literally sickening after 4 months of talking about this and exposing it. Just because of limited time, I'm not going to spend any more time on this. I just want to tell you this. When commercial inventories go down, oil prices go up. When strategic petroleum reserves go down, prices go down. So these are apples and oranges. You cannot mix them together. And this is a big problem right now. And if bank analysts are still fooling their clients with that, this is a big crisis. This is really a serious issue. Back to you.
Outstanding on us. Thank you very much for the information. Dave Nikoski, back to you, my friend.
Yeah, July 1st, I did post UTZ on my timeline, saying that people were buying the wrong chips. I like to play a little, word game there, but that was something I posted on the gas storage in Europe. And I'm assuming these numbers are probably close to being right. Natural gas storage in Europe is down about 40% from 24, which was not a high year by any means, because that was the start of the Ukraine war. So agree with Anis. LNG names, refiners have been on fire, largest crack spreads you've ever seen. Along with that is another group that I think many people don't talk about is the ethanol group, because we mandate that you have to put it in there. Copper is close to breaking out to new highs. Wheat's made a bottom. Soybeans have made a bottom and turning up. So just some other things out there that, people might not look at very often. Gold is having a reversal here. My line in the sand was 4,100. We broke below it, created a double bottom. We're coming back up through it. I'm going to watch the dollar closely today to see if that bull flag actually moves to the upside, or if it gets taken out. If it gets taken out, I'm going to look at the emerging markets. Some indexes hitting new highs. The Straits Times Index, that's Singapore, all-time highs. Most of their ETF in that area is in the banking sector. So that's by far the largest weighting in Singapore. So something to keep your eye on. That's it from me. Back to you.
Excellent, Dave. News. BMW pulling out of the Paris car show. Now, I'm not a big car show guy. I don't think car shows are all that meaningful, but nevertheless, it's industry normality. bigger problems over at BMW across European automakers. If you look at European automakers over the last year, stocks, all of them, there is not one that is up over the past year, and all down anywhere between 20 to 40%. BMW, Volkswagen, Mercedes Benz, Stellantis, Renault, and Ferrari. There is just a lot of difficulty, and the industry as a whole is very important to Europe. Certainly, in the case of Volkswagen in Germany, and the reductions that the company is trying to pull off there, as interest rates, again, rates, folks, they, they're high. They're going higher. Fed and central bank activity be damned. This is going to continue, I think, for me at least, to be a focus. If they are persistently high, and again, they've been high for a long time. Don't get me wrong. So I don't want to sound like the boy who cried wolf. But it's getting challenging in terms of it continuing to climb and there not being a particular reason why and when they will come down. And that affects all large purchases from real estate down to vehicles, and then will reverberate throughout equity markets because money will find a good, safer, and adequately yielding investment in fixed income. And that could happen, in one full swoop fairly quickly. As in addition to that, confidence in governments and their currencies will begin to be questioned. So, just going ahead and bringing that to your attention. I think with that, we'll close it out for today. Thank you very much to everybody for joining this morning. We will be with you tomorrow morning to talk all things. Justin, you better be here, my friend. Tesla. And we've got Google earnings after the bell today.
I've heard of that company. It's a little startup. I think it has a strong future.
Good man. Good man. Bring all your good analogies, Brandon. Please bring some new ones for us as well.
Founder is working on a rocket company too. I think it's at bottle rocket stage right now, but one day it may be something cool.
Amen, my friend. Amen. So we will talk about the untouchable Elon Musk and all other things tomorrow. I thank you all very much for joining, especially during the summertime, especially when people are supposed to be getting some R&R. If you can't join every day, I understand everybody needs some vacation, but we will be here for you 8 a.m. bright and early tomorrow morning. Have a phenomenal day in the markets, folks, and we will see you here tomorrow. Take care.